biology, and he began his career at Wells in the fall of 2021 after spending 22 years at San Diego's Zoo's Institute for Conservation Research, studying the reproduction in birds. Realizing the enjoyment he experienced working with local students at the research lab at the zoo, Dr. Jensen went in search of a small department where he could collaborate with colleagues and work closely with students, and that brought him to Wells. Dr. Jensen has also brought his research to Wells, currently working on the idea of taking adult germ stem cells of endangered birds and artificially inseminating sterile quail and other domestic birds with the cells to better the chances of reproduction of rarer birds. Originally from Denmark, and I understand you just flew in.
Yes.
So you have a little bit of jet lag with us, so thank you.
Last night, so.
Oh, last night? He's got his coffee, we're good to go. He earned his bachelor's degree in zoology from University of Northern Arizona and his doctorate in physiology from the University of Notre Dame. So this morning, Professor Jensen is going to speak to us about the birds and the bees, literally.
Thank you. First, I want to say it's an honor to be asked to give this presentation. It is frankly a little bit scary because I've heard a lot about the alarms here. But yeah, feel free to yell out questions during the talk if you have anything. I do want to preface my talk with a little bit of a warning. When I pull pictures from my lectures, and for this I often get the "Are you over 18?" button you have to click before they release the pictures to me. So now you're warned, and let's talk about the birds and the bees. And oh, also I forgot. I've only been here 2 years, and I absolutely love it. I hope I have the enthusiasm that Professor Gagnon has after many years. And my 25th anniversary, I think, is next year. But it's really truly an honor to work here. I love the students here. It's the exact type of student body that I was looking for, because I can give talks like this.
Can you hold the mic up closer?
Yes, I will do that. I will also try to talk louder, and I will walk off here because I like getting close to my students. All right, so we are going to talk about the birds and bees, and yes, this time it is about that talk. We're going to hit some physiology, we're going to hit some weird behaviors, and then we're going to hit some really cool anatomy, and then I'm going to finish up with some just collection of weird reproductive things. But we'll get to all of these up there. First, I'm going to start out with a physiology. So, who has the largest sperm in the world of any animal? And obviously, we're going to start out with the cool things here, right? So, who has the largest sperm? It is not a whale. It is this little fruit fly. They have the largest sperm. This is one sperm, and if you uncoil it, this is the size of the fly. If you uncoil it, it is this long. That is a gigantic. You can actually see it. It's like I think it's 1.5 centimeter long or something. So. Like this long. That is a gigantic sperm. Why would they have that? Well, there's a lot of competition for the females, and the females want to be able to have what's called cryptic choice. So this is not a conscious choice, this is a physiological choice. The females want to have the males that are the best genetic match to them. And one of the ways they can do that is making the route to the egg as difficult to get to as possible, so only the best sperm gets there. So they have this really long reproductive tract for the sperm to get at, and we think maybe that's why it's really long for the males, because they're trying to counteract that really long reproductive tract by being really long and getting in there. Also, if you have a really long sperm like that, there's not a lot of room for the next guy. So, yeah, that's how there's a little bit of a war going on between male and female, and who gets to choose who's the paternity of the offspring. Oh yeah, so this guy's testes is 11% of his body weight. So, running around with a total amount of 18 pounds of gonads. For us, it's about 0.08%. So this is quite a big difference. So that's how they get them that big. Okay, so now I'm going to shift over to another physiological thing, and that is the oh, I forgot what they're called. What are these fish? Yeah, thank you. What's special about these clownfish, other than being on Disney? Yeah, they live in the anemones in little family groups. So you have a large dominant female. Yes, so we'll get to that in a sec. They can, they can change their gender. That's why I have them up there, because it's really exciting. So you have a big dominant female, and then you have a smaller dominant male. And then you have, depending on the size of the family group, 0 to 4 juvenile non-dominant females. So now when the large dominant female dies, or disappears, gets eaten, then the dominant male grows himself a pair of ovaries and becomes the dominant female, and the next non-dominant male starts to become mature into a male. So what happens is that upregulating a certain genes, the P450 and FOX, are genes that control the presence of estrogen, and RAS is an oncogene that is used in reorganization of cell types, and SRY is the testis-specific gene. So the things that tell it should be male is decreasing, and the genes that tell it should be a female are increasing. So it starts in the brain when this the dominant male sees that the dominant female has disappeared. He sees that, and it starts changing in expression of genes in his brain that then changes expression in the cells in the body, starts growing bigger, takes a few months, and then the gonad starts to reorganize from a testis into an ovary, and then finally his behavior starts to change into a female behavior, and then he becomes the new female. So yeah, that Finding Nemo, I think, would have been a very different movie if they had stuck to the more accurate. I'm not sure it's Disney material. I certainly would have enjoyed the movie more. But yeah. What's also cool about this one is that they can't switch back. Once they switch in, they cannot switch back. There are other species where they can switch back and forth
so
depending on the...
You can only progress to female, is that
Correct.
what you're telling me?
Absolutely true. That is the pinnacle here. All right, so...
I've learned everything I need to know.
Are more males or females born, or is it like 50-50?
No, they're all born male.
They're all, okay.
And then they, like you said,
Evolve, progress.
mature into females.
Ascend.
Mature, ascend into females, yes. Grow a pair of ovaries. Yes. Another thing I want to talk about, another physiological reproductive aspect, is delayed implantation. I'm building up to something in a little bit here. So delayed implantation is when the fertilized embryo, the fertilized egg, the embryo pauses and just sits there in the uterus. It doesn't implant. It just sits there and waits.
That sounds awful.
That sounds awful. No, it is 100 micron. It's twice the width of my hair. So it's really, really small. It's only a few cells. And there's not a lot, but a few animals that do that. Here's some examples of animals that do that. It's about 2 or 3% of mammals have this delayed implantation. Anyone know what this one is? It's an armadillo, but which kind? It is the coolest kind of armadillo. A lot of zoos have them. They're not very big, and they're my favorite armadillo. Like so, it is a an armadillo. It's not a pygmy. It is small, but the name is much bigger.
Is it the smallest? Echidna?
No, echidna we'll get to in a minute. Because they have something special. Okay, it is the screaming hairy armadillo. Which is why it's my favorite.
H-A-I-R-Y or hairy like the name?
No, hairy as in lots of hair. It's hard to see, but they have hair sticking out between the plates. So I don't know why they're called screaming hairy. I guess they're hairy, but I have never actually heard one scream. So. It seems cute, right? So why would we have delayed implantation? What's the? It's advantageous, but how is it advantageous?
If they don't have a good solid food source in order to grow the embryo, perhaps.
Yep. But
If they already have a young child, especially for like I believe kangaroos can also do this. And if they already have a joey and they don't have enough room for another.
they usually don't ovulate for the next round until that. So it's to decouple mating and embryonic or birth, right? So if your mating season for like deer, probably the only deer is the roe deer. It's the most studied of all of these delayed implantation. The roe deer is the most studied. We think maybe David's deer too, but none of the other deers do it. But their mating season is late in the summer, early fall. And so if they didn't have delayed implantation, they would have their babies in the middle of winter, which isn't gonna work. And so this allows them to have a mating season decoupled from the birth, and they can move that birth into where it makes more sense in the late spring, early summer. No, I don't know why you wouldn't just move your mating season. But we might as well make it a little difficult. Bats have a really good reason for it. Bats, it's all about flying. Flying is all about weight and energy. I don't know how many have been pregnant, but trying to run with a full-grown baby or twins is not going to be fun. That means you're easy prey. Same goes for bats, even more so because flight is energetically really, really expensive, right? So if you can get mate before hibernation, their embryo growth is pretty short. You mate before hibernation, and then you wait towards the end of hibernation, and then you activate that embryo, and then by the time you're ready to wake up from hibernation, you give birth, you hang the kid on the ceiling, and go out and find food. So how nice would that be? You sleep through the pregnancy, and when it's born, you just kind of hang them up. They just hang them on the wall or on the ceiling. So so there's some reasons for that. Okay, so now we're another one I want to talk on before I get to one more slide and we get to what I think is the exciting one. Probably nobody else thinks, but I do. What is heteropaternal superfecundation? So that is an awesome word, right? So all of these animals do that, including the horse and the rider, and kangaroos too. So heteropaternal superfecundation. It's an awesome word, right? Superfecundation is just fraternal twins. That means you had more than one oocyte, more than one egg ovulate. So you have two non-identical twins. Imagine. What does heteropaternal mean? Exactly. Different fathers. And we see that in dogs a lot. So now I have the last one, superfectation. That is the conception during pregnancy. So you have it's just one uterus. And this makes it incredibly rare. Because in humans we have systems set up that prevents that second baby from the second egg from even ovulating. Right? There are hormones that keep that second ovulation in place. Once you have implantation, you can't get pregnant again until you stop lactation. So there's hormones you have to overcome. There's changes to the uterine wall that has to be receptive to an embryo implantation. So that's why it's incredibly, incredibly rare in humans. There are a few species that do it on purpose a lot. And what if you take this superfectation, being able to get pregnant while you're pregnant, combine it with embryonic diapause, multiple estresses, and heteropaternity, throwing it all in together in one big pile. You get, it's not necessarily one of my favorite animals, but it is a really cool animal. Bears. And the reason I think it's really cool is that one of my friends is a bear reproductive research. He's not a bear. Well, actually, Bear Tom. We're both called Tom. We were both postdocs at the same Eagle Zoo. We were in the same office. We had the same phone. So it was We need to talk to Bird Tom or Bear Tom. So Bear Tom coming back from the field is taller than me, bigger than me, when he comes back from the field, during field research on black bears, he doesn't shave, so he comes back with long hair and big beard and looks like a bear. He also wants a lot. But he's a lot of fun. But he did some really, really cool research looking at paternity in bears. He had bears trained in a semi-free ranging facility in South Dakota, and he knew the genetic fingerprints, the DNA fingerprints on all the males. He knew when the females were ovulating. He would let the different males mate with the different females. So he knew that he had multiple fathers. They then did uterine flushes and pulled the embryos out and could determine the paternity of these embryos. Early blastocyst, early embryos, so 200 cell embryos, 150, 200 cells, really, really small. And what he found out is that they can have multiple fathers. They can have multiple ovulations. We knew they have different estruses. So if you have an estrus here and an estrus here, the ones from this one should be older than the ones from here, right? No, because they have embryonic diapause. So see, during a breeding season, she can have multiple estruses, breed with multiple males through that, but all the cubs that come out are the same age because of the embryonic diapause. So this is really cool, and he was one of the first ones to show that using DNA fingerprinting. And I think that is really fun, and I had to read his master student's thesis, and it was a big thing to like wrap your brain around. It's not easy.
If there is an evolutionary advantage to this complex combination, why would only one species have access to it?
What is the evolutionary advantage of this?
Well, I'm asking, is there evolution?
There is an advantage, right? See, the female get cubs from multiple males, which means the chances of getting that combination, genetic combination that gives her offspring a better chance. The more males you can have sire your offspring, the bigger chance that one of your offsprings are going to make it, right? So it's an advantage for her. Hmm?
Yeah, it's a lot of frogs.
Yeah, exactly. That's also a very popular strategy in birds.
So if there is an evolutionary advantage, why, I mean, this may be a philosophical question, why only one species?
The multiple male heteropaternity is not limited to them. Once we started doing genetic testing, paternity testing, and that became readily available to the public, there was a lot of humans that we did not have pair populations of paternities. It was at a much higher rate than was estimated prior to this access. So that heteropaternity is a strategy used by many, many animals. Having it all come together, multiple estruses is rare in animals because you need to be able to have the embryonic diapause to have multiple estruses for that to work, because if you don't, then you end up with babies of different ages when they're born, right? And that's not good because you don't want to, the bear wants those babies to be the same age. You don't want to have one that's preemie and one that's not, and you go walking out to feed them and the other one's staying behind because it's not old enough to walk. So it's really, really important that all the embryos are the same age. But because they have that embryonic diapause, that will allow them to have multiple estruses that are fertile, and that increases their chance of getting heteropaternity or strong genetic combinations. So bears are, for a mammal, pretty cool. They're not birds, but they are pretty cool. All right, I think I'm doing okay on time. How much more time do I have?
Half an hour.
Okay, good. So we're going to get into some anatomy. That's why you all came for this one, right? To see all this. Unfortunately for you, you already know all of this kind of normal, eutherian, mammalian anatomy. So we're going to hit some different ones instead. This is the monotreme. We're going to talk about some monotreme anatomy. Anyone know what a monotreme is?
That's one of something.
Monotreme. Yeah, that's correct. Platypus and echidnas are in this group. They're acoustic echidna. It's going to come up in some nice pictures, color pictures in a minute. And then the bottom one here is the marsupials, kangaroos, Mediterraneans, and we're also going to get some really cool pictures from that. Okay, so let's start with this is an echidna. There's 3-4 species of those, and 1 species of platypus. Platypi? Platypuses? Platypuses. So, no, it's not a hedgehog. It looks like a hedgehog, but it's also called the spiny anteater. They're from Australia. They're endemic to Australia, and they're from. We believe that is what the earliest mammals looked like. So think about mammals running around before the KT event, before the extinction of dinosaurs. That's probably the type of reproduction, the type that these guys are, is probably similar to what these are. They wouldn't have looked like that, but the way their reproduction is most likely how those early mammals were. These are very, very, very primitive mammals in terms of not as derived as ours. They're reproductive, in the female, the reproductive organs aren't particularly interesting. That's rare for me to say. I usually like the female reproductive organs better because the testes, just not too much stuff going in there. Ovaries much more fun. But in this particular instance, it's not as interesting as in the male. But there is one thing that's pretty cool about these. Anyone notice? What's
The shell gland?
this is a mammal. Why does it have a shell gland? Mammals don't lay eggs. Or do they? Yes, they do. The monotremes, the platypus, the echidna, those all lay eggs. And then they will, when they hatch, they are mammals. They do have mammary tissue. They do not have mammary glands. They have mammary tissue. They just sweat out milk on their chest, and the babies suckle it up. Once we get to the Mediterraneans, the marsupials, and the Eutherians, the normal mammals, you have mammary glands instead. So very simple, less derived than most mammals we think of. What about the males? Well, here's a male for you. Yeah, that's pretty cool, right? Yep, that's it up close. So, this is 1 shaft and 4 heads. 4 heads. Right before intermission, he will deflate 2 and only use 2 of them. And then if he sees and runs into another female right after he has copulated, he'll inflate the other 2. Why?
Wow.
Why would he mix and match those 2? Why would your use why is it an advantage for him to yes, got 4, to use 2 at a time, and then he sees another female, he's going to switch to another 2? Better what?
Chance of offspring.
Yes, because he has a freshly loaded one there. So he's ejaculated 1. He doesn't have to wait he'll have another one ready to go with mature sperm. Huh? Speed dating, yeah. So pretty cool, right? I think that's an impressive. This is why I like reproductive physiology. What about Mediterraneans? These are the marsupials. This is the kangaroos, or that cute little koala. Look up there. Yeah, let's focus in and see how he's doing. So he also has a split. Actually, some of the indigenous tribes in Australia would take the penis of the boys and split it down the middle. And so they pee in a fan, and the bigger the fan, the more manly you are. And we think probably it's a religious practice, but we think that it probably stems from a lot of their wild animals they look at. They want to try and emulate them. Right? So this is probably why. What else was I going to say about these guys? So why do they have so many hats on these? Well, we're not sure. Other than, well, these guys will inflate both heads. But we have common ancestors with reptiles, and reptiles also have multiple hats, multiple penises. We'll get to those later. Don't worry, there's pictures. So we think maybe this is an evolutionary leftover that has disappeared completely in eutherian mammals or normal mammals. But, oh yeah, here's, this is an opossum, a Virginia opossum. So the one that runs around out in your yard, it also has a nice one like that. Here's a kangaroo. They do not have a split penis, at least not this particular one. There is something else weird about it, which we'll get to in a couple slides, but I want to see if you guys can figure out what it is that's wrong with this guy in a little bit. This is a sugar glider. This has the best penis of those ones because it really shows. It really shows the split. So why do we have a split in these guys?
Oh, yeah.
How's this going to help? That's all because of the ladies.
Is it?
Yeah.
It's weird. It's just weird. They have weird uteruses.
They have really weird uterus. Well, actually, uteruses look normal. The uterus look normal. It's the vagina that looks weird. Yeah. They have ovary, oviduct, and uterus, and cervix. That makes this the vagina. 3 of them.
Oh. Yeah.
2 of them are for mating. So that's where those 2 split penis heads go up in here. What about the 3rd one? Yeah, birth canal. So they have a separate one for birth canal. Which is pretty cool, isn't it? That's nice. It does, right? In higher mammals, more derived mammals, all of this just fused together. Yes?
Well, does the fetus know where to go?
Will it know where to go?
Time comes.
It's like, oh no, there's 3 different doors. You have chosen poorly.
Roads diverged into yellow wood.
Yeah, there's some anatomical limitations there. You're not going to make it up the wrong way.
Okay.
All right, so just to show that it's not just those cool lesser derived mammals, eutherian mammals also have really cool reproduction. This is a rhino. I believe this is the semen collection for the first successful artificial insemination at the San Diego Zoo. So, yeah, I just want to show that normal eutherian mammals can also be really weird. Look at that stupid grin. It's pretty sad. Who the heck else takes selfies while they're holding on to a rhino penis? I do not take selfies very often, but this was my first selfie. But it's kind of hard to see what it looks like, but this is what it looks like. This is really weird. It is flowery. It is, this goes up into the vagina. We think, we're not absolutely sure because it's hard to get cameras in there. We think that this goes into the cervix, through part of the cervix. The cervix in a rhino uterus is really convoluted. There's lots of dead ends. So finding your way through, when you have to do an artificial insemination, you have to get an insemination rod through there, and you're like poking, nope, that's it, back it up, find another way. And we think this goes into the cervix and kind of helps the sperm find the right direction. But until we get a camera in there, we'll know for sure. So yeah, there are some. I have lots of weird pictures. Any questions? All right, so next one, talking about penises and cool penis things. There are a couple bones in your body. Well, not really. In our bodies, there's only one bone. The hyoid up on top here of your esophagus, or your trachea here, where so it's the only bone that we have in our body that's not part of a joint. There are certain mammals that have 2 bones. They have a hyoid and they have this bone. They have this bone, also not part of a joint. Where does this bone sit? Right. This is called os penis or baculum. And it helps males stay in the female. So if they have long mating periods, it just keeps the male in there. Why would the male want to stay in there?
She's
talking to females, so the next male standing there wanting to get a turn, he's not.
Just gonna get bored.
He's gonna get bored to go on, and then this guy's sperm can make it up as far up the reproductive tract as possible. So
Without
there.
racing somebody else's?
The what?
Without racing somebody else's?
Hopefully, that's what he's hoping for. Bears ejaculate in like 30 seconds, but then they sit there for hours and hold on to the female. It's pretty funny to see, actually. And then there'll be like 4 other males standing in line. I think the females get a little tired. This is I thought this was cool. This is a dire wolf. They also have a baculum. Just everybody knows what a dire wolf is because they had that in Game of Thrones. They were from the Ice Age and do not exist anymore. So lots of different animals have these. This is a walrus. It's about almost 2 feet long. That's the largest baculum. So it's bigger than a whale baculum. The biggest baculum we know of is from an extinct walrus, and it was 4.5 feet long. Those were big boys too. Animals, they were big species. So pretty cool. So writing this, I love when I write a lecture and I learn something new. So when I was writing this, I came across the barbellum. I had never heard of it. I talked to my friend Bear Tom yesterday because I was going to brag about how I was going to talk about his research, and I asked him about the barbellum. He had never heard about it either. It is an os clitoris, so it's a female equivalent of a baculum. What's the function? We have no idea. It is typical Western science. It's female, so yeah, let's not study it. It's not even it is another incredible example. I'm a reproductive physiologist, works mostly on birds, right? But even my friends that are mammalian reproductive physiologists, in a species that have baculum, if the males have baculum, the female most likely have a barbellum too. He had never heard of it. That's how little it's been studied. I think it's just another great example of how, if it was, I don't know, Victorian European white male thinking, oh wait, no, can't study that. So anyways.
Not can't, don't want to.
Yeah.
Right.
Yes, don't want to. But I was really excited because I learned something new and really cool. All right, so we're talking about, I don't know if you noticed that kangaroo, but now we're going to talk about to hang or not to hang on the outside. So, are we going to put those guys, you can buy these. I really want one so bad. Scrotal sacks from kangaroos that you can get as souvenirs in Australia. But I have not been to Australia, only in New Zealand, and they don't have any testicles like that there. So I have not gotten one yet, but I will eventually. So why are we hanging those outside? Most of the times when we have something that doesn't make sense, it stems from sexual selection. The females will only breed with males that are showing some weird big display that shows that he has superior genes by logging around a giant tail like a peacock that makes you easy prey for predators, but you're so good you can still stay alive without getting eaten even with that big tail. We do have a common, there's a vervet monkey. We do have a couple of species that have nicely colored balls that they can show off. So there might be some sexual selection, but that was certainly not the main reason for them coming out. So why did we hang them on the outside?
Lower temperature.
Lower temperature is the answer, right? No. So we're saying, the evidence for the lower temperature is that we take sperm cells from the testes and grow them at different temperatures. We grow them at body temperature. They don't mature as well. It's probably the other way around. They mature better at colder temperatures because we hung them on the outside. Also, oh wait, there was this guy in here. So what was wrong with this? He is backwards. He is backwards. This is the way eutherian mammals are. This is the way marsupial mammals are. They hung them on the wrong side. That means that the dropping of the testicles occurred after Eutherian and marsupial Mediterranean mammals split off. That common ancestor had internal testes. So they dropped down to the outside much later than the occurrence of the coming up of mammals. We've had mammals 100 million years before we start dropping testes. So it can't be something with the temperature. It's just nobody really bothered to look into it until fairly recent. Right now, the main hypothesis is the galloping hypothesis. If you have testes on the inside, when you run, there's a lot of hydrostatic pressure inside the body. If you're running, jumping, swinging, doing things like that, there's a lot of hydrostatic pressure inside your body. That's going to squeeze the testes and epididymis, and that's going to squeeze out the sperm. So you're going to use good, valuable sperm. And you go, well, wait, why go through all this rigmarole of hanging them on the outside where they're in danger of getting damaged or lost? Why would you do that? Why can't you just put a sphincter on it? It's much easier. We got hundreds of sphincters in our body. It's not hard for us to make it. The problem is with a sphincter, we can run into problems during ejaculation, and you're not going to get fertilization when you need it. So it was easier to hang them on the outside. There's also other evidence. All animals that move fast, or swing, or jump, have testes on the outside. The ones that do not have them on the inside. Rhinos, elephants, all have their testes on the inside. They do not jump or run around. They all have their testes. You have not seen the male elephant at the zoo with a big set of cojones on his back, or sticking on his rear end, right?
Run. I thought rhinos could run and did run very fast.
Not very often.
Not very often. It's okay.
They move around. They can run, but they don't spend a lot of time running compared to like a horse or a kangaroo.
So it doesn't mean can't run. It's not their
Yeah, it's
mode
not
of
a normal. It's not a
perambulation,
normal mode of movement. We also have animals that come from ancestors that were running, jumping, galloping. For example, hedgehogs. They have internal testes, but their ancestors had external testes. And the same with, where are they? All the marine mammals. They also they come from an animal that was on land that had testicles on the outside. It was actually a predator. It's the same ancestor to cows. So cows and whales are related, and their common ancestor is a predator, which makes it really weird. So, flesh-eating cows with testicles on the outside. Well, cows do too. So anyways, the marine mammals all lost their external testes. Why did they lose them? It's when you're in the water, you have to rely on fluid dynamics. If you have something like a big set of testicles hanging on the outside, if you're a whale, you got to need some big ones. Resistance, right? Turbulence. Drag. That's exactly it. Drag. Testicular drag is a very negative condition of pressure. So they pull them on the inside. That's for sure. The only one of the big marine mammals that have them on the outside are the big elephant seals. But you've seen those on Nature Channel. They like to fight on the beach, and they beat the crap out of each other by bouncing into their bodies. So that's where we think that is. So, pretty cool, right?
Very.
I think that's very cool. I love this picture. Okay, so speaking of, well, we're going to stay with the penises for a little bit longer. In reptiles, so squamates, that's the snakes and lizards, they all have these hemipenises that come out with multiple heads. So they have two, some of them have two heads on them too. They only inflate one at a time. They always have a lot of spikes on them so they can hold on to the female because they have little arms to hold on with. So this holds on to the females. They inflate so they'll stay in there for a while, and that is to keep other males away too. Another cool one, alligators. This is an alligator one. I've actually had one of these. It is really fun. They are perpetually erect, except for the head inflates a little bit before intermission, but they're basically always on. ready. So they have a muscle that pulls it out, and then they have a tendon that snaps it back. And it looks, as maybe about this big, if it's a big alligator, and it looks weird. It doesn't have a canal. It has a groove. You can stick your finger in the groove here and then run it all the way up. And that's the canal that the sperm's going to go in, but it's not an enclosed tube, so it's kind of cool. So really nice, really fun. The most impressive male, the largest penis to body size, is the Argentinian lake duck. Got a little one here. That can this is just like the sperm on that fruit fly at the very beginning. This is the way the female has a very convoluted reproductive tract. The male wants to get the sperm up as close to the egg as possible. Normal birds have glacial contact, glacial kiss. They just transfer the sperm into the glac and it has to swim all the way up on its own. On these guys, he's going to take the sperm and put it right up at the egg. On top of that, ducks they like to have multiple males and a female. So having this long one in there holds onto the female so the males can't get in. Also, at the tip, they've got little hair fingers. So they can kind of take the previous male sperm and move that out of the way. And then put their own. So, pretty cool. The females do their...
Why the beautiful colors? I've actually seen this in a rat snake, and it was hot pink like that. It was gorgeous. But what's the purpose of that?
I don't know, because the female won't see it.
Yeah.
Like, it won't get folded out until they're wrapped up. So I don't know, and they don't use it as a sexual display to other males to chase them away and everything. So that's a good question. I do not know. In this case, the penis is corkscrewed clockwise, and the reproductive tract in the females are counterclockwise. So this is a way for the females to, ducks are very aggressive breeders. This is a way for females to have some choice and make it harder for the males. All right, behaviors. Sexual cannibalism, you've all heard of that. We know some especially spiders and mantids. Males are normally significantly smaller than the females when it comes to, I think they died. When it comes to size between males and females, it's a significant difference. Males would make an easy meal, and so if she's not interested, she's going to just eat him instead. If she is interested, she's going to let him mate and then probably eat him anyways. So, is that an advantage for the male?
No.
Yes, it is, because he gets to mate her, and then he fills up the female. So now she's nice and full, lots of energy, bigger chance that the offsprings are going to survive. So it's actually an advantage. About 25% of these matings will result in the male being eaten, and 50% of those deaths, the male will continue. Well, there it is. The male will continue to successfully mate the female. So those, like 75, well, whatever, 50% of the ones where the male dies, he actually gets to help his offspring. The other 50% are helping somebody else's offspring. So you gotta there's lots of different ways of trying to entice the females. These guys, the male will jump on the female from behind and then tie her legs up so she can't. So they did experiment, and they closed up the spinnerets on the male so they couldn't get the cobweb on there and tie up the females, and every single male got eaten. So it is imperative to tie up the female, and then hopefully you can finish up before she gets loose. Others is to look really good, get the females all excited about you by doing nice little displays like that. The only vertebrate species where the male can get truly pregnant is the seahorse. They have a cell lining on the inside of their pocket, so the female has its ovipositor that she'll stick into his pocket and inject the eggs. Once they get in there, he will release the sperm and they'll get fertilized. When they hatch from their little eggs, the embryos will stick to the sides of the lining of his pocket, which excretes a placental fluid that feeds the embryos. It's also highly vascularized that keeps oxygen in and CO2 out for those embryos to keep them.
Is that
just
how
like
they
the
always get
reproduce? Oh, okay, it's
Yep.
not just something that happens. Okay.
Yeah, it's always like that for
So
these guys.
only the males get pregnant?
Yes.
Or do both males and
Nope,
females?
just males. Males are the only ones with a placental pocket. And then he gives birth, and it is an expulsion. He does this weird movement to expose the babies.
Oh,
Pretty, and they are a lot of times pair bonding for significant amount of time.
why is he called a male if he's actually performing
Because
female function?
he produces the microgamete. So we define males and females by the size of the gametes we produce. If you produce large gametes, you're the female. If you produce small gametes, you're the males. Biologically. He produces sperm. That's the microgametes. He's a male. But only on that pouch. Yeah. So, and it makes sense because now the female, she's the one that makes, it's easy to make sperm. You can make sperm. It's not a lot of energy required for that. Oocytes take a lot more, there's a lot more energy put into each gamete. So now the female has dumped the responsibility of carrying the babies, and she can now get and impregnate another male. So you can actually get more, that female can get more embryos out, more babies. Okay. Yes, I have never seen this. I want to see it so bad. This is a mating ball. So this is just for, we have garter snakes do it, copperheads, anacondas. There are basically maybe 1 or 2 females in there, 100 males. All males trying to get her. This is where that heavy penis with the spikes come in handy. When you have a grip, you don't want to let go, right? Because there's a bunch of other males trying to outcompete your sperm. All right, so I just have, I want to finish up with some just plain weird reproductive stuff. Oh, I have weirder. That's weirder. This is there's several orchid species that are specializing in looking like a female bee or wasp. So most plants go, come here to my flower, I'll give you some nectar, you can get some pollen, and you can go to another one and pollinate for me. And I'll give you a little packet of nectar, and it's rewarding, and it's mutualism. And not these guys. I'm going to look like a female, you can come over here and start humping that one, and while you do that, I'm going to drop some pollen on your head. And when that bee or wasp finds out it is not a female, they'll get bored and go to the next one, which as far as the orchids are concerned, is hopefully another orchid, and then he can work on that one and spread the pollen. So this is not symbiosis. This is more like parasitism. He's wasting sperm and time that he could be mating with a female and getting nothing out of it. So these are kind of cool. They not only look like it, they feel like it, and they smell like females. And a lot of the chemicals they put out are more female-ish than the real females from that species. So they smell better to the males than the other females, so they can compete with that species females. Yes.
How do you assess the smell? You guys just lean in and...
No, you get a biochemist like Burwell, Professor Burwell, you get a biochemist to come in, analyze the different chemicals, see if they're similar in structure, and then you can take those different compounds, putting out and see which ones the males prefer. And they'll prefer the plant one over the natural one. So, what about the hemifractidae frogs? There we got some of these. As they mate, the female will start to shove eggs underneath her skin, little slits or pockets, and the male will then put the sperm on their external fertilizers. They'll fertilize the eggs, and then they'll shove the eggs into little pockets, slits on the back, and then they'll carry them around until they hatch, and then they can let them out. So that's pretty cool. We have the pathogenic whiptails. These are all females. They lay an egg so they make a clone of themselves. So there's not a lot of genetic diversity because you're just cloning yourself and laying an egg. They have obligate courtship. They have to have mating behavior before those oocytes are activated and can produce an embryo. That means you have 2 females courting. One will take on the role of a male and be the male partner, she does not get pregnant. The other one does. And then they'll take turns. What is the advantage of that? You're getting less genetic diversity than you would if you had sexual selection. However, there's one huge advantage to this.
You don't need no man.
Yes, but what does that
Thank you
mean?
for saying that out loud.
What does that mean?
Nobody gets eaten.
No annoying males around. There is one advantage. When you're in a new environment, if you need both males and females, only half of your population can produce offspring. If you're these girls, everyone produces, so you can take over an area very, very rapidly. So that's a big advantage. And they're usually in low quality or the outskirts of where, so they have closely related species, but they're in habitat that isn't ideal for this type of lizard. But they can handle it because they produce more offspring. And then my final one, I'm also going to have the talk about the octopuses, like octopi. But first we're going to look at this one. Everyone knows what that is? No. This is an anglerfish. This is one of the a fairly recent picture. It's one of the only pictures that we have of anglerfish in the wild. We did not realize that they have this big corona of shiny things around. We just thought they had the anglerfish, but they have this whole network around them, which is incredibly cool. So what's special about them? They hang on the outside.
Does the male kind of latch onto the female and then fuse each other or something
Yep.
like that?
There he is. So literally, these females hang their gonads on their testes on the outside. They can have up to 8 different males. The males, they're pelagic. They live out in the ocean, deep ocean. It's very difficult to find food, which is why you look like this. And it's very difficult to find mates. So when you find one, you let him bite on, and then he'll bite off, and then her skin grows over him, and his head, his brain, his intestines, all that shrink away or is lost. So, and he becomes part of her blood circulation. So basically, all he is after a while is a pair of testicles hanging on the outside here. So he can do the external fertilization when she has the eggs.
Does it kill him or is it?
No, he's still alive. He just doesn't have a brain.
He's a
anymore.
guy.
He's got a place to hang.
No comment.
Sweet sugar mama. Little nice sugar mama, right? Hanging there. All he's got to do is let it go when it needs to. So there's some weird stuff going on, right? When we get, so this is basically a testicular transplant. We would get an immune response, but they don't. So there's a lot of stuff we could learn by studying these. Unfortunately, they don't stay alive as they pull them out. But if we could study out how they do this might help us in human medicine to figure out how to block immune responses to transplants, which would be really cool. All right, and then I think my...
You have to have sex to kosher.
You have to carry him around. The weirdest, I think the weirdest one, octopi and squid, when they mate, the males have a special arm with a spermatheca at the end. That's a little sperm packet that he takes and shoves up underneath the mantle of the female where her ovaries are. That's how they mate. The Argonauts goes one step further. You can detach that arm. And it has sensors on it, and then it has its own little brain. It will chase after the female. This is a female.
Does it come back?
No, it does not come back. It swims. So the detachable penis does not come back, but it will go out and search down the female and inseminate her.
That's terrifying.
It's a one-shot deal. Yeah, it's a good one. But a detachable penis? I'm not sure we know. I'm not sure. No, I would think they're going to have to be they're not gonna let go unless they're really close to the female and they know, because you only have a one shot. It's not gonna go back down. Yeah, no. He sees the female, she's swimming by, and then he'll release and it'll swim off. But
So octopus can also regrow arms, can you regrow them?
I don't think they regrow the penis, but I'm not absolutely sure, but I don't think so.
Quick question, is this an actual sport? The reason I'm asking is I can imagine like people sitting around the library on Sunday night with their index cards, penises on one side. Really waking you up. I can't get my mind around it.
Right? All right, I think that was my last slide.
Awesome.
Any other questions?